A cleaning lady shared her Christmas Eve dinner with a homeless boy. 21 years later, Santa Claus knocks on her door. The scent of pine and cinnamon hung in the air as Emily scrubbed the office floor one last time that Christmas Eve. Her knees ached, but she ignored the pain. At 40, Emily was used to the physical discomfort that came with her job as a cleaner. "Top floor done, Mrs. Davies," the security guard announced, his voice echoing in the empty hallway. Emily stood up, her back cracking. "Thanks, John. Merry Christmas." "Shouldn't be here so late on Christmas Eve," John commented, frowning. Emily forced a smile. "Hey, someone's got to do it, right?" As she packed her cleaning supplies, Emily caught a glimpse of her reflection in the office window. Stray grey hairs escaped her messy bun, and worry lines etched her tired face. She barely recognized the woman staring back. 20 minutes later, Emily unlocked the door to her small apartment. The contrast between the opulent office she'd just cleaned and her modest home was stark. A plastic Christmas tree, no bigger than a table lamp, sat on a corner of the kitchen table. It was the only sign of the holiday in the Spartan setting. Emily pulled a small roasted chicken, her Christmas Eve dinner for one, from the oven. The tempting aroma filled the apartment, but instead of joy it brought a wave of memories. 25 years ago. "Emily, you can't stay." Her mother's voice was firm, but her eyes betrayed her sadness. "You're 15. How are you going to take care of a baby?" Emily clutched her 6-month belly, tears streaming down her young face. "But Mom, it's my child." "And that's why you need to give him the best chance," her father intervened, his expression a mix of disappointment and concern. That night, Emily ran away. With just a backpack and naive dreams of building a life for herself and her baby, she embarked on a journey that would lead her down paths she'd never imagined. "Present!" Emily shook her head, pushing away the painful memories. She sliced the chicken, the sound of the fork against the plate echoing in the quiet apartment. Each bite was a bitter reminder of her past choices and the price she'd paid. Her gaze drifted to the single photo on her bookshelf, a faded image of a newborn baby. Emily felt a lump in her throat. 21 years had passed since she'd given her son up for adoption, a decision that haunted her every day. "Merry Christmas, my love," she whispered to the photo, her voice choked with emotion. The sound of laughter and animated conversation from the next-door apartment seeped through the thin walls. Emily closed her eyes, letting the loneliness wash over her. How had she gotten here, 10 years ago? "I'm sorry, Emily, but we're going to have to let you go." The restaurant manager looked genuinely apologetic. "Please, Mr. Harrison, I need this job," Emily pleaded, desperation evident in her voice. "I know, but with the economy the way it is, we just can't keep everyone on." That night, Emily cried herself to sleep, the reality of her situation weighing on her like a lead blanket. With no formal education, no specialized skills, what options did she have? Present. The shrill ringing of the phone ripped Emily from her reverie. She hesitated, letting it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello?" "Emily, it's Mrs. Parker from the employment agency." Emily's heart quickened. She'd applied for a housekeeping position at a wealthy family's home. Could this be the Christmas miracle she so desperately needed? "Mrs. Parker, what a pleasant surprise." Emily tried to keep her voice calm. "Well, I have some news about the position you applied for." Emily held her breath, her fingers gripping the phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Unfortunately," Mrs. Parker continued, "the family decided to go with another candidate. They felt someone younger would be better suited to handle the children." Emily's world seemed to crumble. "I understand," she murmured, struggling to maintain her composure. "Thank you for letting me know." As soon as she hung up the phone, Emily slumped back in her chair, the tears she'd held back for so long finally overflowing. Was this it? Was this the limit of her possibilities? The clock on the wall read 11:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, it would officially be Christmas, but for Emily, it felt like the holiday had lost all meaning. She stood up, walking over to the window. Outside, the snow was falling softly, blanketing the city in white. Families passed by on the street below, carrying presents and laughing, oblivious to the loneliness that consumed the small apartment above. Emily pressed her hand against the cold glass. What did I do wrong? She whispered to herself. Where did I go so wrong? At that moment, something inside Emily snapped. Years of regret, loneliness, and struggle seemed to culminate in this single moment of despair. She was about to turn away from the window, resigned to another solitary night, when a movement on the street caught her eye. A small figure was trudging through the snow, seemingly alone. Emily squinted, trying to get a better look. Was it a child? Alone on Christmas Eve? Without a second thought, Emily grabbed her coat and ran to the door. As she hurried down the stairs, 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Who was this child? Why were they alone? And why did Emily feel such an overwhelming urge to help? As she opened the building door, the cold wind hit her like a slap. Emily hesitated for a moment, the reality of her situation coming back into focus. What was she doing? She could barely take care of herself. How could she possibly help someone else? But then, through the falling snow, she saw the small figure again. It was definitely a child, and they seemed to be crying. In that moment, something shifted inside Emily. Maybe it was the Christmas spirit, or maybe it was just the basic human need for connection, but she felt like this encounter could change everything. With her heart pounding and a mix of fear and hope, Emily stepped out into the snow. Little did she know that this simple act of compassion was about to set in motion a series of events that would change her life forever. The clock on the nearby church began to chime, announcing the arrival of Christmas Day. And with each chime, Emily moved closer to the mysterious child, unaware that she was walking towards her destiny. Emily pushed through the snow, the biting wind whipping at her face. Her eyes, narrowed against the blizzard, desperately searched for the small figure she'd seen from the window. The silence of the night was broken only by the muffled sound of her footsteps and the distant pealing of church bells, heralding midnight. Suddenly, a faint sob cut through the air. Emily stopped, straining her ears. There it was again, a muffled cry almost lost in the howl of the wind. She turned towards the sound, her heart pounding. "Hello," she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Is anyone there?" For a moment, all was quiet. Then, as if answering her call, a small form emerged from behind a snowdrift. It was a boy, no older than 6, shivering violently in a coat far too thin for the bitter cold. Emily approached slowly, trying not to frighten him. "Hi, sweetie," she said softly. "Are you lost?" The boy lifted his face, revealing large, frightened eyes, red from crying. His nose was running, and his lips were a worrying shade of blue. He nodded silently, more tears streaming down his icy cheeks. "My name is Emily," she introduced herself, crouching down to his level. "What's your name?" Alex," the boy stammered, his teeth chattering. Emily felt her heart clench. The boy looked so small, so vulnerable. Without thinking twice, she took off her own coat and wrapped it around Alex's shoulders. "Alex, you can't stay out here. It's freezing," she said, concern evident in her voice. "My apartment is just over there. Why don't we go inside and get you warmed up? I have hot cocoa." Alex hesitated, his eyes darting nervously between Emily and the empty street. Years of warnings about strangers echoed in his young mind, but the cold and fear were winning over his caution. Emily, sensing his hesitation, tried to reassure him. "It's okay, Alex. I'm just a lady who wants to help. I promise we'll try to find your family as soon as you're warm and safe." Finally, Alex nodded, allowing Emily to gently guide him towards the building. As they climbed the stairs, Emily couldn't help but notice how light the boy was, almost fragile in her arms. Upon entering the small apartment, the warmth enveloped them like a blanket. Emily quickly turned on all the lights, hoping the brightness might calm the frightened boy's nerves. "Let's get this wet coat off," she said, helping Alex out of his soaked clothes. "I have a warm blanket right here." As she wrapped Alex in a soft blanket, Emily noticed marks on his arms, old bruises and some that looked more recent. She felt a knot form in her stomach, but decided not to comment for now. "Now, how about that hot cocoa I promised?" Emily forced a smile, trying to keep her voice light and cheerful. Alex nodded shyly, his eyes wandering around the small apartment. His gaze landed on the tiny Christmas tree on the kitchen table. And for a moment, a flicker of curiosity replaced the fear in his eyes. As Emily prepared the hot cocoa, she watched Alex out of the corner of her eye. The boy seemed to be calming down, the warmth of the apartment finally penetrating his chilled bones. "Here you go," Emily said, handing Alex a steaming mug. "Careful, it's hot." Alex took the mug with both hands, inhaling the sweet aroma. He took a cautious sip, and for the first time since Emily had found him, a small smile appeared on his face. "Is it good?" Emily asked, sitting down next to him on the couch. Alex nodded enthusiastically, taking another sip. "Alex," Emily began softly, "can you tell me what you were doing out there all alone? Where are your parents?" Alex's smile vanished instantly, replaced by an expression of fear and sadness that broke Emily's heart. I don't have parents," he murmured, staring down at the mug in his hands. Emily felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. "Oh, honey," she said softly, "I'm so sorry. Do you live somewhere nearby?" Alex shook his head. "I was with a family. They said I was going to stay with them for a while, but—" He stopped, tears welling up in his eyes again. "It's okay, Alex," Emily encouraged him gently. "You can tell me." They didn't want me," Alex sobbed, the words coming out in a rush. "They said I was too much trouble, that I ate too much, that I wet the bed." Tears were now streaming freely down Alex's face, and Emily felt her own eyes welling up. She fought back the urge to hug the boy, afraid of startling him. "So I ran away," Alex continued, his voice almost a whisper. I thought maybe Santa Claus could find me if I was on the street. Maybe he could take me to the North Pole with him." Emily's heart shattered. The innocence and desperation in Alex's words were almost unbearable. "Oh, Alex," she said softly, finally giving in to the urge to wrap the boy in a gentle hug. To her surprise, Alex didn't resist. Instead, he snuggled closer, as if desperate for comfort. "You did the right thing by asking for help," Emily said, stroking Alex's hair. "No one should be alone on Christmas, especially not a brave little boy like you." Alex looked up at her, a mixture of hope and fear in his eyes. Are you going to send me back?" Emily hesitated. She knew the responsible thing to do would be to contact the authorities immediately. But it was Christmas Eve, and the thought of handing this frightened, lonely boy over to a cold and impersonal system on this night of all nights felt wrong somehow. "No, Alex," she finally answered. "Not tonight. Tonight, you're safe here." The relief on Alex's face was immediate and palpable. He relaxed visibly, sinking further into Emily's embrace. "Tanas," Emily said, trying to inject some cheerfulness into her voice. "How about we have some of that Christmas chicken I made? I bet you're hungry." Alex nodded enthusiastically, his stomach rumbling as if to confirm Emily's words. As she got up to prepare the food, Emily couldn't help but wonder what she was getting herself into. She could barely take care of herself. How could she possibly take care of a child, even for one night? But then she looked at Alex, curled up in the blanket, his eyes following her every move with a mixture of gratitude and awe. And Emily knew she'd made the right decision, maybe, she thought. This was the Christmas miracle she'd been waiting for. Not in the way she'd imagined, certainly, but miracles rarely come as we expect them. As she served the chicken, Emily made a silent promise to herself and to Alex. No matter what happened next, she would do everything in her power to make sure this boy had the Christmas he deserved. And who knew, maybe in the process, she might also find a little bit of the Christmas magic she'd lost along the way. The aroma of the warmed-up chicken filled the small apartment, mingling with the sweet smell of hot cocoa. Emily watched, with a mixture of tenderness and concern, as Alex devoured his portion as if it were his last meal. "Slow down, sweetie," she said softly, putting a little more mashed potatoes on his plate. "There's plenty of food, no need to rush." Alex looked up, his cheeks full like a chipmunk's. He swallowed with difficulty and mumbled an almost inaudible, "Sorry." Emily smiled, feeling a wave of affection for this little stranger fate had placed in her path. "No need to apologize, Alex. I just don't want you to get sick." As they ate, Emily tried to keep the conversation light, hoping to distract Alex from his troubles, even if just for a few hours. "So, Alex, what's your favorite color?" she asked, cutting another piece of chicken. "Blue," he replied between bites, "like the sky on a sunny day." Emily smiled. "Blue is a beautiful color. Do you know what my favorite is?" Alex shook his head, curious. "Green," Emily said, "like the leaves in spring. It reminds me of new beginnings." Alex's eyes lit up with interest. "You like spring, Emily?" "Very much," she replied. "It's the time when everything seems possible. The flowers start to bloom, the birds come back to sing. It's like the whole world is waking up from a long sleep." Alex seemed fascinated. "Can you tell me more about spring?" "At the house." "At the other house? There weren't many flowers." Emily's heart ached at the thought of the experiences this boy must have missed. She began to describe fields of wildflowers, the songs of birds at dawn, the smell of freshly cut grass. With each word, Alex's eyes grew wider, as if he were visualizing a magical world. "You know, Alex," Emily said, an idea popping into her head, "I have a special Christmas story. Would you like to hear it?" Alex nodded enthusiastically, pushing his now empty plate aside and snuggling deeper into the blanket. Emily took a deep breath and began. "Once upon a time, in a small snow-covered town, there was a magic Christmas bell. She wove a tale about an enchanted bell that, when rung with a pure heart, could grant Christmas wishes. She spoke of a lonely girl who found the bell and wished for a family. To her surprise, the following Christmas, she was adopted by a loving couple." As she told the story, Emily watched Alex's face. His eyes shone with a mixture of hope and fascination. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. "Emily," Alex finally said, his voice low and hesitant, "do you think there are really magic bells?" Emily felt a lump in her throat. How to answer that question without crushing the hopes of a child already so hurt by life? "You know, Alex," she began carefully, "maybe there aren't bells exactly like the one in the story, but I do believe there's magic in the world, especially at Christmas. Sometimes, that magic comes from places we don't expect." She stood up and went to the small Christmas tree. From one of the branches, she took a small silver bell, no bigger than a dime. "This bell," Emily said, returning to the couch, "belonged to my grandmother. She gave it to me when I was little, saying it would bring me luck and hope in difficult times." Alex gazed at the bell with admiration. Emily gently shook it, producing a crystalline sound that echoed through the apartment. "Alex," she said softly, "I want you to have it." The boy's eyes widened in surprise. But it's yours." "It's special," Emily smiled, feeling tears forming in her eyes. "That's exactly why I want you to have it, to remind you that, no matter how hard things seem, there's always hope, there's always goodness in the world." With trembling hands, Alex took the bell. He examined it carefully, as if it were the most precious object in the world. "Thank you, Emily," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. I'll never forget you." Emily felt her heart swell with a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. Without thinking, she pulled Alex into a hug, and to her surprise, the boy hugged her back tightly. "I'll never forget you either, Alex," she murmured, stroking his hair. They stayed like that for a long moment, the silence broken only by the ticking of the clock and the occasional tinkle of the bell as Alex moved it. Finally, Emily gently pulled away. "It's getting late," she said, noticing Alex's sleepy eyes. "How about we get some sleep? Tomorrow is Christmas Day, after all." Alex nodded, yawning. Emily arranged the couch with extra blankets, creating a makeshift bed. "Emily," Alex called out, already lying down and wrapped in the blankets. "Yes, sweetie. Do you think Santa will find me here?" Emily felt her heart clench. "I'm sure he will, Alex. Santa always finds good children, no matter where they are." Satisfied with the answer, Alex closed his eyes. The bell clutched tightly against his chest. Emily stood there, watching him drift off to sleep. She knew that the morning would bring difficult decisions and complicated realities. But in that moment, seeing the peaceful expression on Alex's face, she felt a certainty she hadn't experienced in a long time. Somehow, she would make this an unforgettable Christmas for Alex. And maybe, just maybe, in the process, she might also rediscover the magic she'd lost so long ago. With one last look at the sleeping boy, Emily went to her room, her mind already planning how to turn what little she had into Christmas presents to surprise Alex in the morning. The bell tinkled softly in the silence of the night, as if sealing a promise between two lonely hearts that, for a brief moment, had found comfort in each other. The soft chime of the Christmas bell echoed in Emily's memory as she watched the snow fall outside her apartment window. 21 winters had passed since that magical night when a little boy named Alex had entered her life, bringing a brief flicker of hope and joy. The intervening years had not been kind to Emily. Each Christmas brought a bittersweet mix of memories and longing. She always wondered where Alex was, if he was happy, if he still remembered her. The bell she had given him so long ago now existed only in her memories, a symbol of a fleeting but profound connection. At 45, Emily faced her first major health challenge. A persistent back pain, the result of years of strenuous physical labor, forced her to take medical leave. Doctors spoke of herniated discs and premature wear and tear, using terms that sounded like sentences to Emily. "You need to consider a career change," the doctor suggested, his voice a mix of compassion and pragmatism. Emily laughed bitterly. "Change to what? Cleaning is all I know." Recovery was slow and painful. Every movement was a reminder of her newfound fragility. But Emily was resilient. She returned to work, determined not to let the pain define her life. However, the world around her was changing. At 50, Emily noticed the looks, the whispers. People treated her differently, not with respect for her experience, but with impatience for her age. "And maybe we should hire someone more energetic for the upper floors," she overheard her supervisor say one day, unaware that she was nearby. Emily swallowed her pride and asked to stay on the lower floors. It was that, or lose her job altogether. The years passed, and each Christmas brought a new layer of melancholy. Emily decorated her small apartment with the same modest decorations as always, including the small plastic tree that occupied a corner of the table. And every year, she left a wrapped present under the tree, a present for Alex, the boy she had never seen again but never forgotten. At 55, Emily faced another setback. An automated cleaning company took over the contract for the building where she had worked for decades. "I'm sorry, Emily," her supervisor said, avoiding her gaze. "It's the modern times, you understand." Emily understood all too well. She was a relic of a bygone era, replaceable by machines and algorithms. The following years were a constant struggle. Emily bounced from job to job, taking whatever she could find. House cleaner for private residences, cleaning assistant in hospitals, anything to keep the bills paid. Each Christmas, she looked at the faded baby photo on her shelf, her son, long since given up for adoption, and at the empty space where Alex's bell should have been. Two absences that weighed heavily on her heart, reminding her of the choices and circumstances that had shaped her life. At 60, Emily noticed the first signs of arthritis in her hands. The work that was already difficult became almost unbearable. But she persisted, fearful of the alternative. And then, like a cruel birthday present, came the notice. The owner of the building where Emily had lived for over 2 decades decided to sell the property. "You have 6 months to find a new place," the letter stated coldly. Emily sat heavily in her chair, the reality of her situation hitting her like a punch to the stomach. At 61, she was about to lose not only her home, but also the last tangible connection to the memories she held so dear. That night, alone in her apartment, Emily allowed herself to cry for the first time in years. Tears of frustration, fear, and a deep sense of injustice streamed down her wrinkled face. "What did I do wrong?" she whispered to the empty room. Her eyes landed on the small Christmas tree, still standing in its usual corner. It was almost Christmas again. Another year without Alex, without her son, without family. With trembling hands, Emily picked up the present she had wrapped for Alex, a habit she had maintained all these years. It was a small storybook about spring, the season she had so loved describing to him on that distant night. "Oh, Alex," she murmured, stroking the wrapping paper. "Where are you now? Do you remember me? That night?" The silence of the apartment was her only answer. Emily placed the book back under the tree, a gesture of hope against all logic. She knew it was foolish, that Alex probably didn't even remember her, that he was now a 27-year-old man with his own life, but in that moment, clinging to that memory was all she had. As she prepared for bed, Emily did something she hadn't done in years. She prayed, not for a miracle or for riches, but simply for strength. Strength to face another day, another challenge, another disappointment. "Please," she whispered in the darkness, "just one more chance. A chance to make a difference, to feel like my life has been worthwhile." What Emily didn't know, as she drifted off to sleep with dried tears on her face, was that fate was about to answer her prayer in a way she could never have imagined. The following Christmas would bring an unexpected visitor, an encounter that would change everything and prove that, sometimes, miracles happen in the most unlikely moments and in the most surprising forms. Christmas Eve arrived, cold and silent, finding Emily sitting in her worn armchair, watching the snowflakes dance outside the fogged window. At 61, the wrinkles on her face told stories of struggles, disappointments, and a loneliness that seemed to deepen with each passing year. The small apartment, soon to no longer be her home, was decorated with the same modest ornaments as always. The tiny plastic Christmas tree occupied its usual spot on the kitchen table, its lights twinkling faintly, as if reflecting the flickering hope in Emily's heart. She sighed, her eyes landing on the wrapped present under the tree, the storybook about spring she had bought for Alex. 21 years had passed since that magical night, but the memory remained vivid in her mind, a beacon of light amidst the shadows of the difficult years that followed. "Merry Christmas, Alex," Emily murmured to the silence of the apartment, "wherever you are." The clock on the wall read 10:30 p.m. Emily slowly rose, her bones protesting the movement. It was time for bed. After all, what else was there to do on a lonely Christmas Eve? That's when she heard it, a knock on the door. Emily froze, her heart quickening. Who could it be at this hour, on Christmas Eve? The knock came again, more insistent this time. With hesitant steps, Emily approached the door. "Who is it?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. "Ho, ho, ho." "It's Santa Claus," came the reply from the other side, a deep, jovial voice. Emily frowned, confused. Was this some kind of joke? A cruel prank from a neighbor? "Please," the voice continued, losing some of its joviality. "It's very cold out here. Could you let me in for a moment?" Emily's hesitation was palpable. Years of living alone had made her wary of strangers. But something in the man's voice, a familiarity she couldn't explain, made her pause. Slowly, with trembling fingers, she unlocked the door and opened it a crack. Standing before her was, indeed, a Santa Claus, tall, with a luxuriant white beard and an impeccable red suit. His eyes, a deep blue, twinkled with a mixture of kindness and something else, recognition. "Good evening, Emily," Santa said softly. "May I come in?" Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. How did he know her name? I'm not sure if..." she stammered, her hand still firm on the doorknob. Santa smiled gently. "I understand your hesitation, but you, more than anyone, should know that sometimes we must open our doors to strangers on Christmas Eve. Wasn't that how you changed a little boy's life a long time ago?" Emily's eyes widened. How could he know about that? Almost against her will, she found herself opening the door completely, allowing the mysterious visitor to enter. Santa Claus stepped inside, bringing with him a scent of pine and cinnamon that immediately filled the small apartment. He looked around, his eyes lingering on the small Christmas tree and the solitary present beneath it. "Ah, I see you still maintain the tradition," he commented, gesturing towards the gift. Emily watched him, a mixture of fascination and apprehension on her face. "Who are you?" she finally asked. "How do you know these things about me?" Santa Claus turned to her, his smile widening. "Emily, Emily," he said, his voice filled with a tenderness that caught her by surprise. "Don't you really recognize me?" She studied him more closely, her eyes scanning every detail of his face. There was something familiar about those eyes, the curve of that smile. "It can't be," she whispered, feeling her legs weaken. Santa Claus gently guided her to the armchair. "Sit down, Emily. We have much to talk about." As she sat, stunned, Santa Claus picked up the present from under the tree. "A book about spring," he said, turning the package over in his hands. "And you always loved spring, didn't you? It's the time when everything seems possible, you once told me." Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Alex?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Santa Claus, Alex, nodded, removing his fake beard and hat. And there he was, the boy she had taken in so long ago, now a grown man. "Hello, Emily," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sorry it took so long." Emily covered her mouth with her hands, tears now streaming freely down her face. "Oh, Alex," she sobbed. I thought I'd never see you again." Alex knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "I promised I'd never forget you, remember? And I kept that promise." For a long moment they remained like that, hands clasped, gazing at each other as if afraid it was all a dream. Finally, Emily found her voice again. "But how? How did you find me? Why now?" Alex smiled, a smile that mixed joy and a hint of sadness. "It's a long story, Emily. A story that involves searching, discoveries, and, well, a little bit of Christmas magic." He stood up, helping Emily to her feet. "But before we get into that, how about some hot cocoa, for old time's sake?" Emily nodded, still dazed, but feeling a wave of warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time in years, a genuine smile lit up her face. As Alex moved around the small kitchen, familiarizing himself with the space as if he had never left, Emily watched him, marveling. The frightened boy of her memories had transformed into a strong, kind man. And there, on that Christmas Eve that promised to be like all the others, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Fate, it seemed, had a few more surprises in store for her. The aroma of hot cocoa filled the small apartment, bringing back memories of a night long past. Emily, still stunned by Alex's sudden appearance, watched him move about the kitchen with surprising familiarity. Alex, now 27, seemed to fill the space in a way the frightened little boy of her memories never could. Tall and handsome, he carried an aura of confidence mixed with a kindness that Emily immediately recognized. "Here you go," Alex said, handing Emily a steaming mug. "Just the way you used to make it." Emily accepted the drink, her hands trembling slightly. "Alex," she began, her voice choked with emotion, "I have so many questions and I don't even know where to begin." Alex smiled, sitting down next to her on the worn sofa. "I know, Emily, and I promise to answer them all. But first, I want you to know something. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about you and that Christmas Eve." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Alex," she whispered. "I never forgot either. Every year, I wondered where you were, if you were okay." Alex took Emily's hand, squeezing it gently. "So I'm here now, and I have a lot to tell you." He took a deep breath and began his story. "After that night, I was taken back into the foster care system. It was hard at first, but then something amazing happened. A family adopted me, the Millers. They were kind, patient, and gave me all the love I had never known before." Emily smiled through her tears, relieved to know that Alex had found a loving home. "But you know, Emily," Alex continued, "even with all their love, I never forgot the kindness you showed me. That one night, it changed everything for me." He pulled something from his pocket, the small Christmas bell that Emily had given him so many years ago. "I've carried this with me every day since then. It was my talisman, my reminder that there is goodness in the world, even in the darkest of times." Emily gasped, reaching out to touch the bell. "You kept it?" Alex nodded. "Of course, I kept it. It was the first real gift I ever received." He continued his story, recounting his school years, how the support of his adoptive family and the memory of that Christmas Eve motivated him to strive and overcome adversity. "I studied hard, got a scholarship to college," Alex explained. "Guess I majored in business and, well, things worked out for me in the business world." Emily listened, amazed, as Alex talked about his successful career, about the tech company he had founded that now helped children in vulnerable situations. "But you know, Emily," he said, his voice turning serious, "with all the success, there was something missing. I needed to find you, to thank you, to show you that your act of kindness wasn't in vain." He explained how, over the years, he had tried to locate Emily. "It wasn't easy," he admitted. "All I had was a name and a vague memory of where your apartment was, but I didn't give up." Emily was speechless. "You searched for me all this time?" Alex nodded. "Yes, and finally, a few weeks ago, I managed to track you down. I found out you still lived here and, well, I decided that Christmas would be the perfect time to reunite." He paused, his eyes filling with emotion. "Emily, you have no idea the impact you had on my life. That one night, that single act of kindness, was the catalyst for everything good that happened to me afterward." Emily was speechless, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what Alex was saying. She had always wondered if that night had meant as much to Alex as it had to her, and now she had her answer. "Alex," she finally managed to say, I don't know what to say. All these years, I wondered if I had done the right thing, if I had helped in any way." "You did more than help, Emily," Alex said firmly. "You saved me, not just from the cold that night, but you showed me that I was worthy of love, of kindness. You planted a seed of hope that grew and blossomed over the years." Emily couldn't hold back the tears any longer. She wept, with relief, with joy, with an emotion so profound it couldn't be named. Alex embraced her, and in that moment, time seemed to fold in on itself. It was as if those 21 years had never passed, as if they were once again that lonely cleaning lady and the frightened boy, finding comfort in each other on a cold Christmas Eve. When they finally separated, Emily looked at Alex with new understanding. "It's a miracle," she whispered, "a true Christmas miracle." Alex smiled, his eyes shining. "Yes, it is. But you know, Emily, the miracles don't end here. I came not just to thank you, but to offer something in return." Emily tilted her head, curious. "What do you mean?" "Emily," Alex said, his voice filled with determination, "I know about your difficulties, about the risk of you losing this apartment. I want to help. In fact, I want to do more than that. I want to offer you the chance of a new beginning." Emily blinked, surprised. "Alex, I don't understand." "It's simple," he smiled. "So you gave me a chance when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to return the favor. What do you say about coming to work with me at my foundation for children? Your experience, your compassion, it's exactly what we need." Emily gasped, barely able to believe what she was hearing. It was as if, suddenly, all the doors she thought were forever closed had swung open at once. "Oh, Alex," she whispered, This is... "It's Christmas, Emily," Alex said softly. "It's a time for miracles, for new beginnings. What do you say?" And there, in that small room, with the distant sound of Christmas bells echoing outside, Emily felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Pure, radiant hope. The future, which had seemed so bleak before, now shimmered with infinite possibilities. With tears of joy in her eyes, Emily nodded, unable to form words. Alex hugged her again, and together they allowed themselves to dream of the future that lay before them. A future born from a simple act of kindness on a Christmas Eve long ago. The silence that followed Alex's offer was comfortable, filled with promise and possibilities. Emily held her mug of hot cocoa, absorbing the warmth and the incredible turn her life had just taken. Alex, in turn, seemed restless, as if something was still weighing on his mind. "Emily," he began, his voice soft but determined, "there's one more thing I need to tell you. Something I discovered during my search for you." Emily looked up, noticing the seriousness on Alex's face. "What is it, dear?" Alex took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "When I started investigating your past, trying to find you, I discovered something that changed everything." Emily's heart quickened. There were so many secrets in her past, so many painful things she had tried to bury over the years. "Emily," Alex said, his voice trembling slightly, you are my biological mother." The world seemed to stop. The mug slipped from Emily's hands, spilling hot cocoa onto the floor, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on Alex, desperately searching for any sign that this was a joke, a mistake. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be. I would have recognized you." Alex took her hands, squeezing them gently. "I know it's a shock. It was for me too, but the records don't lie, Emily. You gave birth to me 27 years ago, at St. Mary's Hospital." Alex's words unlocked a flood of memories that Emily had fought so hard to repress. Suddenly, she was back in that fateful night, 27 years ago. Flashback. Emily, only 15, lay in a hospital bed, her body exhausted after hours of labor. The cries of a newborn baby echoed through the room. "Ton, it's a boy," the nurse said, handing the small bundle to Emily. With trembling hands, she held her son for the first and only time. He was perfect. Tiny fingers, curious eyes, a soft down of dark hair. "Alex," she whispered, the name escaping her lips before she could think. But the joy of the moment was quickly overshadowed by the harsh reality of her situation. Too young, without resources, abandoned by her family. Emily knew she couldn't offer the life her son deserved. The social worker entered the room, her expression compassionate but firm. "It's time, dear." Emily clutched Alex to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "I love you," she murmured to the baby. "Never forget that. Mommy loves you more than anything." With a broken heart, she handed Alex to the social worker. The baby's cries echoed down the hallway as they took him away, the sound haunting Emily for years in her nightmares. "Present," Emily gasped, snapping back to reality. Tears streamed freely down her face as she looked at Alex, her son, her baby, now a grown man sitting before her. "Oh my God," she sobbed. "Alex, my Alex." Alex was crying too, pulling Emily into a tight embrace. "Mom," he whispered, the word laden with decades of pent-up emotion. For a long moment, they held each other, letting years of pain, regret, and longing flow between them. When they finally separated, Emily touched Alex's face with trembling hands, as if seeing him for the first time. How did you find out?" Alex wiped his tears, trying to compose himself. "It was during my search for you. I hired a private investigator to trace your past. He found the hospital records, the adoption papers." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "When I found out, everything made sense. Why I felt so connected to you that Christmas Eve 21 years ago. Why I could never forget you." Emily shook her head, still stunned. "But I didn't recognize you. How could I not recognize my own son?" "You only saw me for a few moments when I was born, Mum," Alex said softly, "and I was just a scared little boy when we met again. Beside," he hesitated, choosing his words carefully, "I think, subconsciously, you may have prevented yourself from making the connection. The pain of losing me must have been so great." Emily nodded slowly, understanding. She had buried that part of her past so deeply, convincing herself that it was better not to think, not to remember. "All these years," she murmured, "I wondered where you were, if you were happy, if you were safe. And then on that Christmas Eve, you showed up at my door. My own son." Alex smiled through his tears. "I think somehow we were destined to find each other again. That night it was fate giving us a second chance." Emily nodded, a mixture of emotions crossing her face: joy, sadness, regret, hope. "Alex, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for abandoning you. I was so young, so scared." "Shh," Alex interrupted gently. "You don't need to apologize. You did what you thought was best for me. And look how it all worked out in the end." He took her hands again, his eyes shining with love and understanding. "You saved me twice, Mum. Once by giving me up for adoption, ensuring I had a chance at a better life. And again on that Christmas Eve, when you showed me what true kindness and unconditional love are." Emily sobbed, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. Her son, her long-lost baby, had not only found her, but had forgiven her, loved her, even without knowing who she really was. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Alex smiled, a smile full of promise and possibilities. "Now, Mom, we start over. We have 27 years to make up for, and I'm looking forward to every moment." And there, in that small room, with the distant sound of Christmas bells echoing outside, mother and son embraced again, united not only by blood but by a love that had survived time, distance, and fate. The future, once uncertain, now shimmered with the promise of a reunited family and rediscovered love. The silence that followed the revelation was palpable, filled with decades of unspoken emotions and unanswered questions. Emily and Alex remained seated, their hands still intertwined, each lost in their own thoughts and memories. It was Emily who finally broke the silence, her voice trembling but determined. "Alex, I don't even know where to begin. There's so much I need to tell you, so much to explain." Alex gently squeezed her hands, encouraging her to continue. "I'm here, Mom. I'm ready to hear everything." Emily took a deep breath, gathering the courage to relive the past she had tried so long to forget. "I was only 15 when I got pregnant. My parents, they were furious. They said I'd ruined my life, shamed the family." Tears began to form in her eyes as she continued. They gave me an ultimatum. Either I gave you up for adoption, or I would be kicked out of the house. I was so young, so scared. I didn't know what to do." Alex listened intently, his face a mixture of compassion and pain. "It must have been terrible for you," he said softly. Emily nodded, wiping away her tears. "It was the hardest decision I've ever made. But I wanted you to have a chance, a better life than I could offer. I thought I was doing the right things." Her voice faltered, and for a moment she was silent, struggling to control her emotions. Alex waited patiently, giving her the time she needed. "After I gave you up," Emily continued, "my life fell apart. My parents treated me like a stranger in our own home. I couldn't focus on school, so as soon as I turned 18, I ran away. I came to the big city, determined to start over, to forget." She looked at Alex, her eyes pleading for understanding. "But I never forgot you, Alex. Not a day went by that I didn't think about you, wonder where you were if you were happy." Alex processed everything in silence for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was laden with emotion. "I understand why you did what you did, Mum, but I can't deny that I grew up feeling abandoned, unwanted." Emily felt as if her heart was being crushed. "Oh, Alex, no, you were never unwanted. I loved you from the moment I knew of your existence." "Then why?" Alex asked, years of repressed pain emerging in his voice. "Why did you never look for me? Why, when we met that Christmas Eve, didn't you say anything?" Emily closed her eyes, guilt consuming her. "I wanted to, Alex. God knows I wanted to. But I was so ashamed, so afraid that you would hate me, that I wouldn't be good enough for you." Alex stood up abruptly, walking to the window. The snow outside was falling softly, a serene contrast to the emotional storm within the apartment. "I spent years imagining this moment," he said, his voice low. "Imagining what I would say if I ever found my biological mother. Sometimes I imagined yelling, demanding explanations. Other times I dreamt of a hug, a happy reunion." He turned to Emily, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "But now that I'm here, now that I know the truth, I just feel gratitude." Emily blinked, surprised. "Gratitude?" Alex nodded, returning to sit beside her. "Yes, gratitude, for you being strong enough to give me a chance at life, for taking me in that Christmas Eve, even without knowing who I was, for planting in me the seed of kindness that shaped who I am today." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small Christmas bell Emily had given him so many years ago. The metal was a little worn, but it still shone in the soft light of the Christmas tree. "I kept this all these years," Alex said, his voice soft. "It was my reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is goodness in the world, that someone, somewhere, cared about me." Emily reached out a trembling hand, touching the bell. The soft sound it emitted seemed to echo with all the lost and found possibilities. "Alex," she whispered, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for not being strong enough to stay with you, for not looking for you sooner. For all the years we lost. Alex took her hands, the bell between them. Mom, he said, the word laden with emotion. We can't change the past, but we can choose our future. And I choose to forgive. I choose to love. I choose to have you in my life as if you'll have me. Tears now streamed freely down Emily's face. Oh, Alex, she sobbed. Of course I'll have you. I love you, my son. I always have. I always will. They embraced, years of pain, regret, and unexpressed love flowing between them. The bell tinkled softly between their bodies, as if sealing their reconciliation. When they finally separated, both with tear-streaked faces but smiles on their lips, Alex said, You know, Mom, maybe we missed the first chapters of our story together, but we still have many chapters ahead to write. Emily nodded, feeling a surge of hope and joy she hadn't experienced in decades. Yes, my son. And I promise that every page will be filled with all the love I've kept in my heart all these years. As the snow continued to fall outside, mother and son remained embraced, the small Christmas bell between them, a symbol of their shared past and the promise of a future together. In that moment, they both felt that they had finally found the home they had always been searching for, in each other. The day after Christmas dawned clear and cold, the previous night's snow covering the city in a pristine white blanket. Emily sat in the passenger seat of Alex's car, her heart pounding as they drove towards the suburbs. Today, she would meet the family who raised her son, a meeting she both longed for and dreaded. Don't worry, Mom, Alex said, noticing her anxiety. They're wonderful people. I'm sure they'll love you. Emily forced a smile, but couldn't quell the nerves that consumed her. What if they hated her for abandoning Alex? What if they didn't want her in his life? Finally, they arrived at a cozy house with a large tree in the front yard. Alex parked the car and turned to Emily. Ready? She nodded, unable to form words. Together, they walked to the front door. Before Alex could knock, the door opened, revealing a middle-aged couple. The man, tall with graying hair, had a warm smile. The woman, of medium height with brown hair, had a more reserved look. Alex, the man exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. Merry Christmas, son. Merry Christmas, Dad, Alex replied, returning the hug. He turned to Emily. Mom, these are Robert and Mary Miller, my adoptive parents. Dad, Mom, this is Emily, my biological mother. A tense silence followed. Robert was the first to break it, extending his hand to Emily. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Emily. Emily shook his hand, grateful for the cordiality. The pleasure is all mine, Mr. Miller. Thank you for taking such good care of Alex. Mary, however, remained quiet, her gaze studying Emily intensely. There was something in her eyes, not exactly hostility, but an emotion Emily couldn't decipher. Please come in, Mary finally said, her voice controlled. It's cold out here. Inside the house, the atmosphere was cozy, decorated with family photos and mementos. Emily couldn't help but notice the many pictures of Alex throughout the years, moments of his life she had missed. The initial conversation was strained and superficial. Robert asked polite questions about Emily's life, while Mary remained largely silent, just observing. Alex tried to keep the conversation flowing, clearly uncomfortable with the palpable tension. After lunch, when Alex and Robert retreated to the kitchen to do the dishes, Mary finally addressed Emily directly. Emily, can I speak with you privately? She asked, her voice soft but firm. Emily nodded, following Mary to an upstairs study. Her heart pounded in her chest, fearing what was to come. Mary closed the door behind them and turned to face Emily. For a long moment, she just stared, as if searching for something in Emily's face. You don't recognize me, do you? Mary finally said, her voice trembling slightly. Emily frowned, confused. Should I? Mary took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. Emily, I'm your sister. The world seemed to stop. Emily felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. What? She whispered. No, that's not possible. I don't have a sister. Yes, you do, Mary said softly. I was born 2 years after you, but when I was only 3, our parents split up. Dad took me, and Mum stayed with you. They decided it would be easier if we cut all ties. Emily staggered, leaning against the desk for support. Long-buried memories began to surface. A little girl with brown hair, laughter in the backyard, a confused and painful goodbye. "Sarah," she whispered, the childhood nickname escaping her lips before she could think. Mary's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Emily, it's me. But how? Why?" Emily stammered, her mind reeling from this shocking revelation. Mary stepped closer, taking Emily's hands in hers. "I always knew about you. Dad told me when I was older. I even tried to look for you a few times, but, well, life happened. I got married. We adopted Alex." She paused, swallowing hard. "When Alex told us about you, about that Christmas Eve, and I knew it was you, my lost sister." Emily was stunned. "You knew all this time, since you adopted Alex?" Mary nodded, tears now streaming freely down her face. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was afraid of how you would react, afraid of losing Alex." "Oh, Sarah," Emily sobbed, pulling her long-lost sister into a tight embrace. Years of loneliness, of feeling disconnected from her own family, seemed to dissipate in that moment. They stayed like that for a long time, crying and holding each other, decades of separation melting away in minutes of reconnection. When they finally separated, Emily looked into her sister's eyes, seeing in them the same love and pain she felt. "We have so much to talk about, so much to catch up on." Mary smiled through her tears. "Yes, we do. And now we have all the time in the world." At that moment, a soft knock on the door brought them back to reality. Alex entered, his face a mixture of concern and hope. "Is everything all right in here?" he asked, looking from one to the other. Emily and Mary exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. It was Emily who answered, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes, Alex, everything is all right. In fact, it's better than all right. It seems you not only found me, but you brought me back to my whole family." Alex smiled, slowly understanding what had happened. He joined the hug, wrapping his arms around both his biological mother and his adoptive mother. In that moment, in a small study in a suburban house, 3 lives that had been separated by fate were finally intertwined again. Christmas, which had begun with shocking revelations, was now transforming into a celebration of family, forgiveness, and unconditional love. And downstairs, hanging on the miller's Christmas tree, the small bell Emily had given Alex so many years ago tinkled softly, as if celebrating the reunion of a long-divided family. The silence that followed the revelation was heavy, laden with conflicting emotions and unanswered questions. Emily, Mary, and Alex remained in the study, each absorbing the impact of the newly discovered truths. It was Emily who finally broke the silence, her voice trembling but determined. "Mary, how could you keep this a secret for so long, all these years?" Mary lowered her eyes, guilt evident on her face. I was afraid, Emily. Afraid of losing Alex, afraid of how you would react, afraid of unearthing the past." Alex, still stunned by the revelation, looked from one to the other. "You two are sisters. My adoptive mother is my biological aunt." He shook his head, incredulous. This is too much to process." Emily turned to her son, noticing the confusion and pain in his eyes. Oh, Alex," she whispered, reaching out to him. But Alex recoiled, his expression a mixture of hurt and anger. "Both of you, you lied to me all these years." "Alex, no," Mary pleaded, taking a step towards him. "We never wanted to hurt you. Everything we did was out of love for you." "Love?" Alex laughed bitterly. "Say, what kind of love is based on lies and secrets?" Emily felt her heart break at the sight of her son's pain. "Alex, please, try to understand. We made mistakes, yes, but—" "Mistakes?" Alex interrupted, his voice rising. "You call this mistakes? My whole life has been built on a lie." Mary tried to touch Alex's arm, but he pulled away. "Son, Don't call me son," Alex shouted, tears starting to form in his eyes. "I don't know who I am anymore, who you are." With that, he stormed out of the study, leaving Emily and Mary stunned and heartbroken. Emily turned to her newly discovered sister, years of repressed emotions surfacing. How could we let this happen, Sarah? How did we let our family fall apart like this? Mary sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I'm sorry, Emily. I wanted to tell you so many times, but with each passing year, it became harder. Emily felt a mixture of anger and compassion for her sister. You had no right to keep this from me, Sarah, or from Alex. He's my son. He's my son too, Mary retorted, years of maternal love emerging in her voice. I raised him, loved him, I was there for every moment of his life. The two sisters faced each other, decades of separation and secrets creating a chasm between them. But then, slowly, the anger began to give way to sadness and regret. Oh, Sarah, Emily sighed, using her sister's childhood nickname. What have we done with our lives, with our family? Mary wiped her tears, her voice soft. I don't know, Emily, but I know we can't change the past. We can only try to fix the future. At that moment, Robert entered the study, his face a mask of concern. What's going on here? Alex just ran out of the house. Emily and Mary exchanged guilty looks before explaining the situation to Robert. He listened in silence, his face going through a range of emotions, shock, sadness, understanding. Well, he said finally, it seems we have a rather complicated situation on our hands. Emily nodded, feeling defeated. I never meant to cause so much pain. Maybe I should just leave, let you get on with your lives. No, Mary and Robert said in unison. Mary took Emily's hands. No, sister, we've already lost too much time apart. We're not going to make the same mistake again. Robert agreed. Emily, your family and family faces problems together. Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes again, touched by the unexpected acceptance. But what about Alex? He's so hurt. Alex will need time, Robert said gently, and we'll all need help to deal with this. Mary nodded, an idea forming. What if we sought family counseling? Someone who can help us navigate this situation? Emily considered the suggestion. Do you really think it could help? It's worth a try, Robert replied. For Alex, for all of us. At that moment, they heard the front door open. Alex had returned. The three of them went downstairs, finding him in the living room, looking exhausted and emotionally drained. Alex, Emily began softly. He raised his hand, interrupting her. Don't say anything. I need time to process all of this. Mary stepped forward, her voice trembling. Son, we were thinking, maybe we could seek professional help, family counseling. Alex was silent for a long moment, considering. Finally, he nodded slowly. Okay. I think that might be good. Emily felt a wave of relief. It was a small step, but a step in the right direction. Alex, she said softly, I know all of this is overwhelming, but I want you to know, we all love you, very much, and we'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Alex looked at each of them, his biological mother, his adoptive mother who was actually his aunt, his adoptive father, his family, complicated and imperfect as it was. I know, he said finally. I love you all too. That's why this hurts so much. Mary hesitantly stepped forward, opening her arms. After a moment of hesitation, Alex allowed the embrace. Emily and Robert joined in, forming a group hug filled with emotion. When they separated, there was a sense of cautious hope in the air. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with painful conversations and hard truths, but they were willing to travel it together. Well, Robert said, trying to lighten the mood, I guess we have a lot to talk about in the upcoming therapy sessions. A nervous laugh rippled through the group, breaking some of the tension. As the family moved into the kitchen, seeking the comfort of a warm cup of tea, Emily couldn't help but think about how dramatically her life had changed in just a few days. From a lonely cleaning lady about to lose her apartment, she now found herself in the midst of a complex and challenging family. But looking at the faces around her, her son, her sister, her brother-in-law, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in decades, Emily wouldn't be walking it alone. The weeks that followed the revelation were an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. Twice a week, Emily, Mary, Alex, and Robert met in the cozy office of Dr. Elena Simmons, an experienced family therapist who guided them through the whirlwind of emotions and conflicts that had surfaced. At first, the sessions were tense and often ended in tears. Alex, still struggling to process the truth about his origins, oscillated between anger and deep sadness. Emily and Mary, trying to navigate their newfound sisterhood, often found themselves trapped in patterns of guilt and resentment. "Remember," Dr. Simmons would say gently, "the goal here isn't to point fingers or assign blame. It's to understand, to heal, and to rebuild." Slowly, week after week, small progress was made. Alex began to express his feelings more openly, without the initial anger. "I feel betrayed," he admitted in one particularly emotional session. "But also loved. It's confusing." Emily and Mary, encouraged by Dr. Simmons, began to explore their childhood memories, rediscovering the bond they had shared before being separated. "I remember you singing to me," Mary said softly to Emily during a session, "when I was afraid of thunderstorms." Emily smiled through her tears. "I used to make up silly songs about the thunder just being the sky dancing." These small moments of connection, though painful, began to reweave the family ties that had been broken for so long. Outside of therapy sessions, Emily and Mary started spending more time together, rediscovering each other as adults. They shared stories of their lives, filling in the gaps of the lost years. "You know," Mary said one day as the two walked in a nearby park, "when we adopted Alex, part of me always knew it was more than coincidence. It was as if fate was giving us a second chance." Emily nodded, understanding. "I feel the same way. As if somehow the universe was correcting a mistake, bringing my son back to the family, even though I didn't know it at the time." The sisters began to create new traditions together. Every Thursday night, they met for dinner, sometimes cooking together, other times trying new restaurants. Slowly, the initial awkwardness gave way to a warm familiarity, and they found themselves laughing and sharing secrets as if the years of separation had never existed. Alex, in turn, faced his own challenges. With Dr. Simmons' help, he began to understand that his love for Mary as his mother didn't diminish Emily's place in his life. "It's not a competition, Alex," Dr. Simmons explained gently. "You have room in your heart to love both of them in different, but equally meaningful ways." In a particularly moving session, Alex turned to Emily and Mary, his eyes shining with tears. I love you both. Mary, you raised me, gave me a home, a family. And Emily, you gave me life. And when I needed it most, even without knowing who I was, you took me in. I am who I am because of both of you." There wasn't a dry eye in the room after that declaration. It was a turning point, marking the beginning of a new phase in their family relationship. As Christmas approached again, the family decided it was time for a celebration that reflected their new reality. Planning this party became a unifying project for all of them. "How about we have it at my apartment?" Emily suggested during a family dinner. "It's small, but it's perfect," Alex interrupted with a smile. "So after all, that's where it all began," Mary agreed enthusiastically. "We can all help decorate, make it a real family effort." In the days leading up to Christmas, Emily's small apartment was transformed. Alex and Robert strung lights everywhere, giving the space a warm glow. Mary and Emily worked together in the kitchen, resurrecting long-forgotten family recipes. "Remember this apple pie?" Mary asked, showing Emily a handwritten yellowed recipe. "Mom used to make it for us." Emily carefully took the paper, memories flooding her mind. "Oh, Sarah, I didn't even know you'd kept this." The sisters worked side by side, laughing and occasionally crying as they reminisced about moments from their shared childhood. On Christmas Eve, as everyone gathered in the now festively decorated apartment, there was a palpable sense of excitement in the air. Emily's small Christmas tree, once solitary, was now surrounded by presents and ornaments, each representing a member of the reunited family. Before dinner, Alex asked for everyone's attention. He held in his hands the small Christmas bell that Emily had given him so many years ago. "This bell," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "means so much to me. It represents kindness, hope, and the power of unconditional love. But now, it represents something more. Our family. Complicated, imperfect, but united. He looked at Emily, Mary, and Robert, his eyes shining. I know it won't always be easy. We'll have challenges ahead, but I'm grateful to have all of you in my life. Two amazing mothers, a wonderful father, a family that loves me no matter what. Emily couldn't hold back the tears as she listened to her son's words. She stepped forward, hugging him tightly. Oh, Alex, we love you so much. Mary joined the hug, followed by Robert. For a moment, they stood like that, a united family, healing the wounds of the past with the power of present love. When they separated, Alex held up the bell. How about we make this a new tradition? Every Christmas Eve, we ring the bell together, to remember the journey we've taken and celebrate our unity. Everyone enthusiastically agreed. One by one, they rang the bell, its crystalline sound echoing through the apartment, symbolizing a new beginning for all of them. As they sat down for dinner, Emily looked around the table. Her sister, Mary, laughing at a joke Robert had told. Her son, Alex, with a sparkle of happiness in his eyes that she had never seen before. And herself, no longer the lonely cleaning lady, but part of a loving and united family. In that moment, Emily knew that no matter what challenges the future might bring, they would face them together. The bonds that had been broken for so long were now being rebuilt, stronger than ever. And when the clock struck midnight, officially marking Christmas Day, the sound of the small Christmas bell mingled with the laughter and cheerful voices, a promise of many happy Christmases to come. The aroma of roast turkey and Christmas spices filled the air in Emily's apartment, now transformed into a cozy, festive setting. The Christmas tree lights twinkled, reflecting in the bright eyes of those present. It was Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after the night that changed everything. Emily, dressed in a festive red sweater, watched the scene before her with a mixture of wonder and gratitude. Her small living room, once so lonely, now overflowed with life and love. Alex was helping Mary set the table, while Robert put the finishing touches on the tree. The sound of laughter and animated conversation filled the space, so different from the silence Emily was used to. When the doorbell rang, Emily went to answer, smiling as she saw the grinning faces of her new nephews, Alex's adopted children. "Aunt Emily!" they shouted in unison, hugging her enthusiastically. The family gathered around the table, which barely fit in the small apartment. Emily looked at the faces around her, her sister Mary, her brother-in-law Robert, her son Alex and his family, and even some close friends who had joined the celebration. It was more than she had ever dreamed of having. Alex stood up, holding a glass. "Before we begin, I'd like to make a toast," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "A year ago, on this very night, an act of kindness changed our lives forever." He looked directly at Emily, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom, your gesture of taking me in that cold night not only saved me from the cold, but planted the seed that brought us here. Your compassion, your unconditional love, united us in ways we could never have imagined." Emily felt tears streaming down her cheeks, unable to contain the emotion. Alex continued, "And Mary, Robert, you gave me a home, a family, love. Without you, I wouldn't be who I am today." Mary squeezed Emily's hand under the table, a silent gesture of solidarity and love between sisters. "This past year hasn't been easy," Alex admitted. "We had to face painful truths, overcome old hurts, but look at us now. United, stronger, a family in the truest sense of the word." Everyone raised their glasses, their voices joining in an emotional chorus of cheers. As the meal progressed, conversations flowed naturally, filled with stories, laughter, and plans for the future. Emily found herself sharing childhood memories with Mary, both rediscovering the bond that time had failed to erase. In a quiet moment, Mary turned to Emily. "You know, sis," she said softly, "I always felt like something was missing in my life. Now I know what it was you." Emily squeezed her sister's hand, words unnecessary between them. After the meal, while everyone helped clean up, Alex pulled Emily aside. "Mum, there's something I want to discuss with you and Mary." Intrigued, Emily called Mary over, and the three gathered in a quiet corner of the room. "I've been thinking," Alex began, about how we can honor what happened a year ago. How we can pay forward the kindness that brought us together. Emily and Mary exchanged curious glances. How about we start a tradition, Alex suggested. Every year at Christmas, we could help children in vulnerable situations, just like you helped me, Mom. Emily's eyes lit up. Oh, Alex, what a wonderful idea. Mary nodded enthusiastically. We could work with local shelters, offer meals, gifts. Exactly, Alex smiled. And not just that. We could use my resources and contacts to create a broader program. Help families stay together, offer support for adoptions. Emily felt her heart swell with pride and love. It's perfect, she whispered. First, a way to turn our story into something bigger than ourselves. The three embraced, sealing their commitment to this new chapter in their lives. When they shared the idea with the rest of the family, the response was unanimous enthusiasm. Everyone wanted to participate, each offering ideas and resources to make the project a reality. As the evening progressed, the atmosphere in the apartment became more tranquil. The children slept in makeshift nests of blankets, while the adults talked in low voices, savoring the moment. Emily found herself on the balcony, watching the snow fall softly over the city. Alex joined her, wrapping her in a warm hug. Happy, Mum? He asked softly. Emily smiled, tears of joy shining in her eyes. More than I ever imagined possible, son. They were silent for a moment, contemplating the winter landscape. You know, Emily said finally, for so many years, I felt alone, lost. I thought my life had no meaning, that I hadn't done anything significant. Alex squeezed her shoulder gently, encouraging her to continue. But now I see that every moment, every struggle, every decision brought me here. To this family, this love. She turned to look her son in the eyes. And it all started with a simple act of kindness. Alex nodded, his eyes reflecting the same deep understanding. It's amazing, isn't it? Isn't? How one small gesture can trigger something so big. They went back inside, where Mary was handing out mugs of hot cocoa. Emily took one, the aroma bringing back memories of that first night with Alex. When everyone gathered again in the living room, Robert suggested they sing some Christmas carols. Voices rose in harmony, filling the apartment with melodies of hope and joy. Emily looked around, her heart overflowing with emotion. She saw Mary, her lost and found sister, singing with abandon. She saw Robert, the man who raised her son with so much love. She saw her nephews, sleepy but happy. And she saw Alex, her miracle son, the link that united them all. In that moment, Emily knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. All the years of loneliness, all the struggles and doubts had led to this perfect moment of belonging and love. As midnight approached, Alex picked up the small Christmas bell, the same one Emily had given him so many years ago. So I think it's time to ring our lucky bell, he smiled. One by one, each family member rang the bell, its crystalline sound echoing with promises of love, hope, and new beginnings. When it was Emily's turn, she held the bell for a moment, feeling its weight in her hands. So many memories, so many emotions contained in this small object. She rang it softly, and as its pure sound filled the air, Emily closed her eyes, her heart overflowing with gratitude. Gratitude for second chances, for rebuilt families, for unconditional love. "Merry Christmas, everyone," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Merry Christmas," the reply came in chorus, the voices blending in a symphony of affection and joy. As the snow continued to fall outside, inside Emily's small apartment, the warmth of family love kept away any chill. The lonely cleaning lady who once feared spending another Christmas alone now found herself at the center of a circle of love, acceptance, and belonging. Emily knew that the challenges weren't over. There was still much to heal, much to build. But looking at the smiling faces around her, she felt a deep peace. The future, once so uncertain and frightening, now shone with promises of shared joy and purpose. And so, on that Christmas night, as the last notes of the Christmas carols faded and the soft sound of the bell still echoed in their hearts, Emily, Alex, Mary, and their entire reunited family welcomed not just a new day, but a new chapter in their lives. A chapter filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of many happy Christmases to come.